Hi, welcome to episode 320 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, and I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns there. My patterns are available on Ravelry, but I know that continues to not be a safe site for many, so everything is available in my Etsy shop as well. So, hi, how are you? It is Monday, March 15th. I hope that you are doing well. We have had last week was a busy week, but we got through. I don't know that there was anything super noticeable. Saturday in our house ended up being haircut day. I cut my own hair for the second time during the pandemic. I cut it for the first time, I think, in the summer, so it's probably been at least 6 to 9 months since I cut it. It started with my husband saying he really needed a haircut and he has the clippers to do his, and I walked in and said, I might as well do mine too. So that was our exciting weekend. It's so funny because I was actually not one of those kids who cut my own hair, but my sister was. And oh, do I remember when I was about 8 years old and she was about 5, and she cut her hair and my mom went absolutely ballistic. And ever since then, I've never tried cutting my own bangs. I've just never tried cutting my own hair until the pandemic, when I don't want to go out and be in enclosed spaces with people. And I should say I'm not giving up my day job. I can't wait to return to getting haircuts and getting my hair shampooed and letting someone else do it with much more skill than I have. But it is, that was our highlight for the weekend. We both gave ourselves haircuts, and you know, we're making do. So I hope that you're doing well. Let's see what else. The weather here has changed a little bit. It was beautifully, unseasonably warm for the last couple weeks, and now it has cooled off. We are kind of gray and rainy. Yesterday was in the 40s. Today it is 50, so it's not super cold, but it's definitely more spring-like. And I could use a little bit of sunshine. Today is just kind of overcast, and I've got the extra light and the shadows, and so, yeah. So other than that, I don't have too much to report. You will see some of what I have accomplished this week when I go through my projects. And I will talk a little bit about what's coming up next. So let's start with the tea. Today I am drinking from David's Tea raspberry cream pie, and it came as part of this Sweet Treats Essentials kit that my husband bought me. I hesitate to say, I think it might have been last Valentine's Day. I can't believe it's been that long. Time simultaneously seems to have flown and not gone at all, and I pulled out the box today and I was like, I think this might have been a Valentine's Day gift, but I'm positive it wasn't for this year. So, yeah. Anyway, they did a Sweet Treats Essential Sweets. I guess it's Sweet Treats, and then that's just the French from David's Tea. They are a tea maker in Canada. It is all loose leaf tea. These teas generally have more stuff in them than some of their teas. If you are a more pure tea drinker, you will find things that you like there. These tend to have sugars and all kinds of things. For instance, my raspberry cream pie is green rooibos, cane sugar, white chocolate chips, a pink sugar mix, blackberries, raspberries, flower petals, hibiscus, strawberry leaves, natural blackberry flavoring, vanilla cream flavoring, and raspberry flavoring. So, yeah. So that is what's in here. It smells delicious, but I'm sure it has tons of sugar in it. And I am drinking it in my Sip Something Sinful mug, which was from a friend of mine. Ooh, that's nice. I wish actually the raspberry were a little bit stronger. I can smell it a lot more than I can taste it. But that is kind of a creamy tea. I do like that. And I'm not usually a rooibos fan, but the green actually tastes quite nice. So that's a good one. So let's talk about what I've been working on this week. I actually have a finished object this week, and it is not something you have seen. It is something that I ordered the yarn for, started and finished all in the week since I've seen you. I have been talking about designing a hat to sleep in or knitting a hat to sleep in for a while, and this year I've really taken a notice of Woolly Wormhead Designs. She does fabulous hat patterns. and they are not your average hat. They're really innovative, and they have interesting constructions and a little bit of thinking, and I really like them. And she is one of the designers that has been trying to boost her sales off Ravelry because she is unable to use it. So I feel good about supporting her. So I have bought a couple of her designs this year. And I was actually working on a fingering weight hat design of hers that I stalled out on, but this week she re-released a pattern in Aran weight, and I was like, oh, I really want to knit that, but I don't have any Aran weight. So I went to my local yarn store's online site, hopped on, purchased a skein of Hedgehog Fibers Aran weight. It is carried by Yarn Social, which is my local yarn store, and I love supporting them as well during the pandemic. I try and buy it at least once a month. So I bought a skein of Hedgehog Fibers Merino Aran in the Beetle colorway. And to be honest, from the photos, I thought this was going to be a little bit more speckled and a little less variegated, but it is a really gorgeous, super soft. It's 100% merino. It looks like it's a 2-ply or 3-ply, and it's just got all these gorgeous colors in it. And so the hat that I knit is called Wrapped. It is by Woolly Wormhead. It originally appeared in a Ply magazine to be used with some handspun, and I might actually do that for another hat. But I ended up purchasing the pattern and knitting it in the Hedgehog Fibers. Wrapped is a little bit of a cloche. You can see it's worked with some short row shaping. It's a little bit hard to tell because the pattern is fairly vibrant, but what it is it's concentric rings, and then there are short row sections that sort of give them, it gives the top of the hat quite a bit longer, and then it ends in kind of a circle at the back. It is also a split brim hat, so this is what it looks like on. And it's just a really cute cloche. Like I said, it's got these ridges, and it's got some short row shaping, and then it comes together in the back, as you can see. Well, I can't see, but you can see, and you probably can't hear me because I'm turned around away from the microphone. So it's a really cute hat, and actually I think I'm gonna try sleeping in this one because it's nice and warm. I am one of those people who likes to get into bed, and we keep the house pretty cool at night, and I am one of those people who likes to get into bed and pull the covers up over my head, and it drives my husband crazy because he likes the covers to be below his chin, so there's constantly this back and forth. So I thought maybe if I knit myself a nice hat to sleep in, maybe I wouldn't need to do that. So again, this is my Wrapped hat by Woolly Wormhead. The pattern is available on Ravelry, or you can purchase it off Ravelry. On her website. Links are all on her pages. And again, it is concentric circles and short rows. And the colorway that she used in the pattern is a semi-solid, and I think I'm going to try and do that next time, or maybe do some handspun, because it is a little bright and variegated, but it's just a warm hat and I want to sleep in it, so it's really nice. And then it's got this nice twisted rib brim. So that was a quick knit this week, and I find that adding some quick knits into the longer term ones gives me a little bit of a sense of instant gratification, and so I keep going on projects. So that is that one done. And the only other project I have to show you this week is my V-back tee. This is the V-back tee by Jamie Hoffman, who is Knitosophy. And it comes in a variety of sizes, 1 to 10. The range, I think, is somewhere between 28 or 32 inches at the bottom and 60 some odd inches at the top, so it is a wide range. It is a tee that has a just a regular crew neck in the front and then a V-neck in the back, and so that leads itself to some interesting construction. And last week I had separated for the sleeves, and I had just a little further to go before I started doing the short row sections on the bottom. And I'm pleased to say that I am almost done with this one. I didn't quite make it for this week, but I have so little to do, I will probably finish it tonight or tomorrow. So here's what I have. This is the V-neck tee. I am knitting it in Zen Yarn Gardens in their Luxe Gradient Cakes, which look like this. It is their Serenity Silk Plus base, which is a merino cashmere silk base. It is absolutely luxurious. And the Luxe Cakes are gradient dyed and then caked up. They are an oversized skein, so it's 150 grams and 750 yards. And this is the raspberry skein that I'm using at the bottom. This is actually done in 2 different gradients, as you can see. The top gradient is a new one called Rice Tie, and it has green and purple and red and pink and yellow, and then goes back out to the green, and then at the bottom there I faded in the raspberry one, and that has purple and pink. So they are definitely different, and you can tell, and I wasn't sure whether I would like the transition, but I think it's actually okay. And I do like the slightly more solid color at the bottom because what you have here is this is the V-back. So this is the other side, and the sweater is meant to be reversible, so you can wear either side at front, but this has kind of the V pattern, and then what you need to do is do some short row shaping to kind of even it out with the front, because the back point is so much lower than the front. At this point, I have finished all of my short row shaping. And so theoretically, it is time for me to start the ribbing at the bottom. And what I need to do, the reason that I have not started the ribbing was because I actually want to put this on my mannequin today. I want to do some measuring and figure out kind of how long it is on the back and the front, and whether or not I want to add any length. If I do want to add length, now is the time to add it. I can add as much as I want. It does change sort of the characteristics of the sweater. I believe just it's that it's a more cropped version, and on the the several that are in the pattern, the samples that she created, she basically moved to the ribbing at the bottom at the end of the deep V, so that you didn't have like a section down here that was just plain striping all the way around. And I think I'd sort of like to keep with that styling with the sweater, but I need to sort of see what the length is and if I think it's going to be long enough per the pattern measurements to not make it like a crazy little crop top. I did actually knit this in a fairly large size. I didn't realize exactly how large I was knitting it. Basically, we usually try and knit it in as much yarn as I am sent. And so I went and looked at how much yardage I had and then how much yardage the pattern required. And I selected a size from that. And the size dimensions were in centimeters. And of course, I usually work in inches, so I didn't think about it. I selected the size 6, which ends up being about 52 centimeters. So it is probably an extra large, double extra large, possibly more than that, but I do think it's going to be really nice. And the nice part about knitting it in generous sizes is that everyone can try it on. So that eventually when they go back to festivals and they share these samples, everybody can try them on and see how they like it. Like I said, the pattern offers quite a bit of variation in size. I have basically knitted per pattern. The only thing that I didn't do is the pattern calls for fading between colors, and of course because I used 2 gradient cakes, I only had to fade at one point, and so I sort of followed the fading down here, and I think it actually looks pretty interesting. I don't know. I was trying to decide whether I would have wanted to start another of the same gradient or a different gradient. I do think these colors complement what's already going on up top. I just haven't decided if I would have liked it the other way. I don't know. So, and then the final thing that I need to do is the sleeves get just a slightly, the sleeves basically, it was a top-down concentric circle, shaped yoke, and so what I need to do is I pulled the sleeves off to separate, but I need to pick the sleeves back up and do a little bit of an ending, and I have to decide whether I want to do the ribbing. I think I'm probably going to pull from the other end of the ball and do the finish the sleeves in purple as opposed to the pink, but the pink will be at the hem, so maybe I'll do the pink. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. So this one will be finished by the time I come back to you next week, but it is pretty close. I'm very happy with the progress. Basically, I did the whole bottom section this week, which was quite a bit of knitting. It's a lot of short rows and probably about, I would say, between 6 and 8 inches of work. So I am pleased to have that done. And like I said, I'll get some measurements and figure out where I'm at, and then either knit just a little bit more or work the ribbing at the bottom, and we'll be done and ready to go. So that is that project, which means it's almost time to think about other things to cast on. I had showed you a couple weeks ago the yarns that I have for the children's sock arm sweaters by Stephanie Lotven, and I will be working on that. I also have a baby blanket that I need to knit. Wes's running buddy and his wife are expecting their first child, a little girl, due in June. And so I am going to knit them a baby blanket, and I ordered yarn for that this week, and I think I'm going to turn that into a a pattern that I'll sell. So I have picked out some stitch patterns, and I'm kind of thinking about things in my mind, and hopefully that yarn, I think that yarn shipped this morning. I ordered some Miss Babs Yowza, which is 100% superwash merino, 560 yards to the skein. They are oversized skeins, and I ordered 2 of them. I don't anticipate needing all of it, but I decided to order, I figured 560 yards was a bit short, so I ordered 2, and my plan is to work on that in the next month or 2 and do a pattern for that to release it. And then the other news that I have on the pattern front is Brown Sheep Yarns generously sent me some of their Lana Boucle yarns. It is just a really squishy, it's not exactly what I think of as boucle, because the technical definition of boucle is usually yarns that are sort of curlicued along with like applying thread or 2 different textures that are put together, and this is definitely 2 different textures. I think it's wool, and then it looks like it's plied with either another strand of wool or some kind of thread, and it creates this kind of nubbly texture. And I got 2 colorways. I don't know if it's going to tell me. Yes, these are Sea Jade, and this one is Rich Navy, and my plan is to do, oh, it's really hard to tell. They actually do look quite different in person. I can't tell on the screen if that's what it's showing up as or not. This one definitely is more navy than these 2. These are more turquoise or teal. But my plan is to do some blue hats for Hat Not Hate and release a couple new patterns with those as well. So that is on my needles for the next couple months. So that is some of what you're seeing. I also know I have another sample in the mail on the way to me. So there will be plenty of good things, and I'm hoping that I can start to knit more than one thing at once. As you know, in the last several weeks, I had a little bit of trouble finding my mojo, and I kind of slowed down and worked on one project at a time. But I am hoping now to kind of keep going with multiple projects, because I have a million things I want to knit, and I have tons of beautiful yarns, and I would love to be working in them. I also have some shawls I would like to knit. I would love to knit a sweater for myself, but I'm going to try and get a few of these design things off my plate first, and probably get a good start on the kids' sweaters. Those will be their birthday sweaters for October of this year, but I'll have 2 to knit plus some winter gear, so I'd like to start early on those. I'm also working on a charity blanket, and I also picked up my crochet blanket this week, so I guess technically I haven't only been working on one thing. I've been working on 3 or 4 things again, and I'm kind of easing myself back into that. So sip of tea, and then I'll talk about spinning, and then we'll be done. So I had to look. It's very funny because I'm moving in kind of color stories right now. So I have been working this week in this gorgeous raspberry, which is purple and pink. And my fiber kind of went into that realm, and then the fiber for this week went into that realm too. So last week I showed you a braid from a new to me fiber dyer called Woolfiend, Woolfiend. And it was a beautiful blend of Rambouillet, and it was in the color Sweet Symphony. And that was greens and pinks and very kind of springy looking, and I have finished that one, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I spun this kind of for maximum barber pole, which means I split the braid in half, and then I split each half into 4 or 5 little sections and spun it so I'd get lots of color repeats. You can see that I got lots of different things in this braid, which is exactly what I was going for. I have sections that are pink on pink, sections that are green on green, and then a variety of sections where the 2 are mixed. The braid contained kind of a minty green, a sort of olivey green, and then a kind of magenta fuchsia color with some bits of purple in it. So there are definitely some purple parts, but this is mostly pinks and greens and just really beautiful and springy. This skein needs a good washing, and then it will be up in the shop. If you are looking for something springy, my guess is about 350 yards of probably a sport weight. That tends to be my default these days. So that is that one. It still is, it's just the very little bit overplied, and I think that when I wash it, that tension will set and it will be fine. But that's kind of why you see a little bit of the curly cues here. So I just like a nice firm ply on my yarn, and sometimes that means I end up overplaying it just a little bit, but I like a really good twist on it. So that is what's going on with that one. And then I went and selected another braid of fiber for this week, and it's funny because it ended up being very, very similar. So this is the Tuberose colorway from Apothecary Fibers, and I got this again at my local yarn store. She carries this fiber, and this is greens and a little bit more purple, whereas this one was definitely kind of a hot pink. This one, well, now they look alike in the camera, but this one is kind of a real hot pink. It has a hot pink streak in it. This one is definitely much more purple. I don't know if it's showing up that way on my screen, but this is definitely more sagey greens, and less of a mint. That had a real mint in it, and then kind of an olive, and this is more of a sage and very light sage, and then kind of a purple and gradient out. So this is the second half of the fiber. The first half is already on a bobbin. I will spin the second half this week, and then apply them, and hopefully have this to show you next time. I should say that I have been giving so for those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that for a while I have been a big fan of the spin all the fiber on one bobbin, wind it off onto a ball winder, and then ply from the inside and the outside of the cake. And part of the reason that I have really always been a fan of that method is that it means that there is absolutely zero waste, because basically you ply every inch of the fiber you have together. It means you don't have a little bit more left over on one bobbin and a little bit less on another bobbin. Several weeks ago, I talked about how Adrian of Hello Yarn had actually posted an article written by Jillian Moreno, who is a fabulous spinning teacher and author. You can find her at Jillian Moreno basically everywhere, and she has written a couple books, including Yarnitecture, which is a great book about sort of, she is very... it's not that she's not technical, but a lot of what she talks about is more about how to take the fiber that you have and make the yarn that you want out of it, which is either a function of sort of a little bit of the technical of how you spin and how you're drafting and how you're plying, but also she does a lot with color management of braids. She has done some fabulous tutorials and challenges, and she teaches classes at, I don't know if she's teaching at Vogue Knitting Live right now, but she teaches at Ply Away each year, and I see lots of classes that she teaches in various places about sort of color management and how to combination draft and some of those kinds of things. So it's worthwhile to listen to what she says. She is a contributor to a regular contributor to Ply Magazine, and she also writes lots of her own articles, and she wrote an article on her blog about plying from a center pole ball and how it resulted in sort of an uneven tension and an uneven plying experience because the yarns at the center of the ball are twisted differently than the yarns at the outer edge of the ball, and so you're actually plying yarns with different amounts of twist in them. And I thought that was kind of an interesting observation. Excuse me. And she has some illustrations, kind of, she has some photos and some illustrations on her site that sort of explain what she means by it, and I thought it was interesting, and so I decided to experiment and divide my fiber in half and spin it on two bobbins and then ply it together. And what I found is that you know, it's funny because part of the reason, like I said, that I had been plying from a center pole ball was because I was really uneven in a lot of my division of the fiber, and I really didn't want leftover fiber. I wanted to be able to use every last bit of it. And so the first skein that I did, which was a couple skeins ago, the first skein that I did back on two bobbins again, I divided it like just perfectly, and I had maybe a yard left at the end on one of the bobbins, and I considered that, oh, I mean, if I'm not sacrificing more than a yard of singles, I consider that a total win. Since then, I actually have not done so well, and I usually end up having maybe I don't know, 20 grams, 30 grams between the two. And I do weigh them, but it's just a function of, well, I guess, so it's not grams. I do weigh them, but it's a function of I've been spinning at slightly different thicknesses between the two sets. So I end up with a little bit more on one bobbin than on the other. What I have found is that I can usually wind off this last little bit from whatever the leftover bobbin is and wind it off onto a Nosta pin, and then I can actually do a center ply. I can ply from the center and the outside of that ball, which is just a little bit at the very end. And what I have found is that one of the problems with plying from the inside and the outside of the cake is that the singles were often very energized, and they would often get really, really tangled because there was a lot of coils in those singles, and so I would end up with these balls of yarn, and sometimes I would actually have to cut or remove portions of it because it got so knotted and twisted and tangled. And what I have found is if I just have a little center ply ball that I'm plying from at the end, it really alleviates that, because there's almost never any problem with just that last, I mean, it's probably the last 15-20 yards on the ball of finished yarn. So it's a lot less in the way of singles, and it doesn't get as tangled. So I guess for now, I'm back to 2 bobbins. So for any of you who spin, that might have been interesting. For the rest of you, I'm sorry if it wasn't. But that is sort of what I'm doing. So I have my first bobbin of singles done, and now I am going to work on the second bobbin of singles. And what I have been doing, the other thing that I have been doing during the pandemic, because I have been spending so much more time in different places, so my knit night has gone all virtual in the pandemic, and it means that I actually come in here into my craft room and my office in the evenings now. And so I sit on a Zoom call with my friends. I've actually brought out my treadle wheel, which is an Ashford Joy, and so I have been spinning all of my singles on my Ashford Joy, and then at the end of the week when I'm done, I take the bobbins with me and I go out to the couch and I apply them on my Hanson mini spinner. So I have been using both my wheels, and I have sort of gotten into this great habit, and I'm actually hoping that once the pandemic is over, even when we can meet again, that I will continue to spin some on both wheels, because each wheel has its own characteristics that I love. I really love spinning on the Ashford Joy doing my singles, because I feel like I have so much more control over my singles when I'm controlling the treadling, but I really love going right through plying on the mini spinner, where it controls the speed and all I have to do is just sit and ply. So that's what I'm working on this week, and I think that brings me to the end of this week's episode. I'll stop babbling on, but I hope that you have enjoyed this last half hour. If you were new here, welcome. I hope you'll find a reason to hit the subscribe button and come back. And if you were a returning viewer, thank you so much for spending some time with me this week. I always enjoy hearing what you're up to and following you on social media and seeing what kinds of projects you're creating. But I hope that you can find some moments of crafting peace in the week to come. I hope that you are in good health and enjoying the seasons wherever you live, whatever they may be. And I will say, as I always do, until I see you next week, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!